Hello and welcome to the Healing Codes podcast. I'm Julie Williams, your host, and I welcome you to a place where we explore science, spirituality, and practical wisdom of healing to help you reconnect with your true nature of being. In today's episode, we're going to explore the invisible field that holds these family patterns and discover why understanding it can transform the way we see ourselves, our families, and our healing journey. We'll talk about what the Ancestral Soul Field is, why unresolved experiences can continue to move through the family system, how love, belonging, and loyalty can create ancestral entanglements, and a simple experiential practice to help you to bring your own awareness to the Ancestral Soul Field. In the last episode, we explored the idea of soul inheritance and how many of the patterns, challenges, and even gifts we experience may not begin with us. We looked at the family soul, the invisible web of connection that links us to those who came before, and how healing often begins when we stop carrying burdens that were never ours to hold and instead receive the wisdom, resilience, and life force that have always been available to us. Today, I'm going to take that conversation one step deeper, because before we can understand how ancestral patterns are formed or how they can be transformed, we first need to understand the space in which they exist. What is it that allows experience to ripple across generations? How can a grief that was never spoken of continue to shape a family decades later? Why do some patterns seem to repeat even when each generation sincerely wants life to be different? To explore these questions, I'd like to introduce you to what I call the Ancestral Soul Field. There are moments in life that quietly invite us beneath the surface. Sometimes it happens through a challenge that keeps repeating despite our best efforts to change it. Sometimes it arrives as a feeling that seems larger than the circumstance in front of us, or a persistent sense that something is moving within us, even when nothing around us appears to be changing. These moments often tempt us to look harder at ourselves. We wonder what we're doing wrong, what belief we need to change, or what part of our personality still needs healing. Family constellation work offers another possibility. What if what you're experiencing is not only personal? What if your life is part of a much larger story that began long before you were even born? Imagine standing at the edge of an ancient forest. At first glance, each tree appears to stand independently, reaching toward the light in its own unique way. Yet beneath the forest floor, an extraordinary network of roots stretch in every direction. Nutrients, information, and support move silently beneath the surface, connecting one tree to another in ways that are almost impossible to see. A family system is much like that forest. On the surface, we see individuals living separate lives, each with their own personalities, dreams, and struggles. Beneath the surface, however, something much deeper connects us. Experiences, loyalties, love, grief, resilience, and unresolved events continue to move through the system like currents flowing beneath the visible landscape. This is what I mean by the Ancestral Soul Field. It is not a place that exists somewhere outside of us. It is a living field of relationship that connects everyone who belongs to your family system. It includes those who came before you, those who are here now, and those who will come after you. It carries the memories of love and loss, of belonging and exclusion, of joy and heartbreak. It remembers what families themselves may have forgotten. Within family constellation work, we discover something both profound and deeply compassionate. Nothing that truly belongs to the family system ever completely disappears. Experiences that could not be acknowledged, losses that were never fully grieved, family members who were excluded or forgotten, and events that were simply too painful to process often continue to move quietly beneath the surface until they are finally seen. Rather than disappearing, they wait. Not because they are demanding attention, but because life naturally moves towards wholeness. You may already recognize this in your own family. Perhaps relationships seem to follow remarkably similar patterns across generations. Perhaps they are recurring struggles with health, intimacy, success, addiction, or belonging. Maybe there's an emotion that visits you from time to time with surprising intensity, leaving you wondering why it feels so much bigger than the moment itself. From the perspective of the Ancestral Soul Field, these experiences are not necessarily signs that something is wrong with you. Sometimes they are invitations to look beyond yourself. One of my favorite ways to understand this field is through the image of two tuning forks. Imagine striking one tuning fork so that it begins to vibrate with a clear, beautiful tone. As you slowly bring a second tuning fork next to it, tuned to exactly the same note, closer and closer, something remarkable happens. Before the two ever touch, the second tuning fork begins to vibrate on its own. Nothing visible has passed between them, yet resonance has occurred. In many ways, this is how the family soul operates. When a profound experience remains unresolved within a family system, later generations can begin to resonate with that same emotional frequency. A grief that was never spoken, a fear that was never understood, or a loss that could not be integrated may quietly echo through the generations, finding expression in someone living today. This does not mean you inherit your ancestors' destiny. It means you inherit an opportunity to bring awareness where awareness was once impossible. And that changes everything. For many years, I believed healing was primarily about changing ourselves. Like many people, I searched for better habits, better mindsets, better techniques, hoping each new discovery would finally explain why certain patterns refused to shift. Family constellation work revealed something much more spacious. Sometimes we are trying to solve an individual problem when what we are actually experiencing is a movement within a much larger system. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding is that these patterns exist because something has gone wrong. In my experience, the opposite is often true. They exist because love is trying to find its way back into balance. Children naturally love their parents. They love their families with a depth that exists long before words or conscious understanding. At the deepest level, belonging is essential for survival. A child will do almost anything to remain connected to the people who give them life. Sometimes that love expresses itself in extraordinary ways. A child may unconsciously carry a parent's sadness. Someone may feel responsible for holding a family together. Another may struggle to receive happiness because suffering has become the familiar language of belonging within the system. None of these movements are conscious decisions. They are expressions of love. Beautiful, innocent, deeply human expressions of love. Yet even love can become entangled when it begins carrying what belongs to someone else. I remember working with a woman who had lived with a quiet sadness for much of her adult life. From the outside, her life looked full. She had meaningful work, close relationships, and much to be grateful for. Yet beneath it all was a heaviness she simply couldn't explain. As we explored her family system, a story slowly emerged. Her grandmother had lost a young child. The family never spoke about it. They continued with life as so many families have learned to do, placing their attention on surviving rather than grieving. The loss was never forgotten by the family soul. As that child was gently acknowledged and given a place within the constellation, something shifted, not dramatically, not through effort, simply through inclusion. The sadness this woman had carried for so many years began to soften because what had now been excluded was now seen. This is the extraordinary intelligence of the ancestral soul field. It is always moving towards wholeness. This is why I often say that family constellations are less about fixing people and more about restoring relationship. When something or someone is brought back into belonging, the entire system begins to reorganize itself. The flow of love becomes a little easier. The flow of life becomes a little stronger. And the energy that was once invested in carrying the past becomes available for living in the present. As we move through this series, you'll hear me speak often about the movements of the family soul. These movements emerged after more than 20 years of facilitating family constellation and witnessing thousands of people reconnect with themselves, their families, and their lives. Over time, I began noticing that profound transformations tended to follow similar patterns. Healing wasn't random. It unfolded through natural movements that restored belonging, order, connection, and ultimately our capacity to embrace life more fully. These movements are not simply ideas to understand intellectually, but as experiences that invite us into a different relationship with ourselves, our families, and the generations that have walked before us. I'll now take you through a gentle practice so that you can get a sense for the ancestral soul field in your own family soul. So wherever you are, allow yourself to pause for just a moment. Feel the support beneath your feet. Notice the rhythm of your breath. Without trying to visualize anything perfectly, simply imagine that behind you stand your parents, and behind them stand your grandparents, and behind them their parents. Generation upon generation, stretching back through time, each one carrying life forward until eventually it arrives here with you. You don't need to know their names. You don't need to know their stories. Simply allow yourself to sense that countless lives, with all their joys, challenges, triumphs, and heartbreaks, have contributed to this very moment. Then, gently ask yourself these questions, and you can use these as journal prompts if you wish. What changes in my body as I imagine those who came before me standing behind me? Where in my life do I already feel supported by the generations that came before me, even if I haven't recognized it before? And what might become possible if I allow myself to receive more from life than I have been trying to carry? You don't need to search for these answers, just simply notice what arises. Because this is often how the ancestral soul field begins to reveal itself, not through dramatic experiences or extraordinary insights, but instead through quiet moments of awareness that gently shift the way we see ourselves and the stories we've inherited. Tune in next time and we'll begin exploring one of the most fascinating dynamics within the field, invisible loyalties. Until then, be gentle with yourself, stay curious, and remember that perhaps the greatest gift your ancestors hope for you is not that you carry their pain, but that you fully receive the life that was passed on to you. Thank you for listening today. It was an honor to hold space for you. If you'd like to learn more about me and my work, including my on-demand family constellation courses and my one-to-one sessions with family constellations and consciousness medicine, please visit my website, www.consciousness-medicine.com, where you can stay connected on social media from the links on the homepage, and also check out my new book, Om La La, The Power of Positivity Guidebook.